Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my February book haul. This is going to go down as my biggest book haul ever. January I thought would be my biggest book haul, and it was one of my bigger ones, but February ended up being insane. I have 31 books that I got this month. Now, you might think I am insane, and I think I kind of am, but this happened for a couple of reasons. One, I got some books from publishers. I also, just in my normal book buying process, got a couple books, but I also ended up purchasing books. I ended up purchasing books when I went to McKay's Books in Tennessee. If you've ever been to Chattanooga or Knoxville, there are this chain bookstore called McKay's Books, which is an amazing, tremendous bookstore. McKay's, particularly in Chattanooga and Knoxville, are some of my favorite places on earth. Like, I would seriously put going to McKay's up with going to Disneyland. I love it. I go nuts when I go to McKay's. And so, several of these books, I think like 17 out of the 31 books came from McKay's. So because of that, and I don't normally go there. I go there once a year maybe when I go to visit my sister up in Tennessee. So because of that, my book buying this month was way hyperinflated. So let's go through. I have a bunch of fantasy sci-fi books. I have tie-in books. I have legal thrillers. I have short story collections in there as well. And of course, I have books that publishers sent me. So let's start with my one and I believe only Star Wars book that I purchased this month was Smuggler's Run by Greg Rucka. This is a middle grade book from the Journey to the Force Awakens series. I've been collecting these. I intend to read them sometime. They're really short reads. You can read them in like 2 hours time. But I really enjoy the Journey 2 stories, and I really enjoy seeing Star Wars publishing throughout the years. And so I got this one. This one focuses on Han and Chewbacca. So I'm excited to get to that. I also got some books by authors who have written for Star Wars but are not Star Wars books. Specifically, I got Michael Stackpole's standalone fantasy novel, Once a Hero. Now, first of all, I love this cover art. This is gorgeous cover art. Let me check to make sure who did this art so I can give it credit, because it is just a gorgeous. It says cover art by Kevin Johnson. So this is just a gorgeous cover, and really reminds me of old Renaissance paintings. But this is Michael Stackpole is a fantasy author that also wrote a lot of Star Wars novels. I love his Star Wars books. I've read some of his fantasy books, standalones, like Eyes of Silver and Talion Revenant, some of my favorite fantasy standalones ever. I also read a fantasy book of his from his A Hero Born, which I did not particularly love that book. So he doesn't have a perfect track record, but he has a pretty good one. I'd say of the 11 novels I've read from him, 10 of them are home runs and one of them was a strikeout. So that's a pretty good batting average. So I'm very hopeful about reading Once a Hero. This is from Bantam, which is the publisher he worked with for Star Wars back in the day, back in the 90s. So I'm really excited to get to this one. I also have a novelization, which I don't really read many novelizations, but I saw this for literally like 50 cents, and I decided to get it anyway. And that is the novelization of Hook by Terry Brooks. This is the novelization of the movie that Steven Spielberg made. The screenplay was by Jim Hart and Malia Scotch-Marmo, and the story was by Jim Hart and Nick Castle. And so this is a very small book. I mean, you look at this. This is barely 200 pages. So it's a really short book. But it's by Terry Brooks, and I've read almost all of Terry Brooks' novels. And so I got this purely as a way so I could have all of Terry Brooks' books. And then also because, I don't do that many novelizations. If you want a great group that talks about novelizations, I'd recommend looking up the Paper Movies group headed by Matthew. And I forgot the guy from Red 5 Reviews, but they do paper movies, and so that's a great place if you're looking for novelizations. But I figured this will be one I'll pick up one month. It's just to sit down for a day, read a quick novelization, have a fun time with it. I also got some science fiction books. I have Timothy Zahn's A Coming of Age, which is one of his first novels from Bane Books back in the day. Very old style cover. Not a book I've ever heard anyone talk about. Some of his other books, like his Icarus series, I've seen a few comments about those from other people. His Conqueror series, his, Manta's Gift. I have never once heard or talked with someone who's read this book, so I'm very interested to get into it. Let me see what year this came out. This was 84. So this is actually, but the first Bane printing was in 86. All right. So this was very early on when Bane started. So I'm very excited to get to this one because Timothy Zahn is my favorite science fiction author. I also got a book by Les Johnson and Travis Taylor, which is Back to the Moon. This is the first of two books that they did together as part of their asteroid mining series. There's this book, Back to the Moon, and then there's the second book, which is Onto the Asteroid. And I got Onto the Asteroid at my local bookstore, but I'd wanted to get Back to the Moon so that I could read them in order. But I couldn't find it anywhere, and so I got some money for Barnes & Noble for Christmas, and this was one of the books I got for that. And I actually just read a Les Johnson novel recently that I loved, which was Mission to Metheny. Look up Mission to Metheny and then my name, and you'll see the review. Had a blast with that one. But so I'm really excited to dive into more books by Les Johnson, and I interviewed him at DragonCon, which was pretty cool. I also interviewed Timothy Zahn, but I think most of you know that. All right, next, I got some more books in the Monster Hunter International series by Larry Correia. I read the first book, Monster Hunter International, in January, and I loved it, had a blast with it, and I wanted to read more. And they just haven't had books 2. They've had books 5 and 6 in my local bookstores, but I've never been able to find the first couple ones. So I went and when I was at McKay's, I was able to get books 2, 3, and 4. Book 2 is Vendetta. Book 3 is Alpha, and book 4 is Legion. All by Larry Correia from Bane Books. And I'm very excited to get to more of these. These are just fun books to read. They're a little bit longer, they're 500, 600, 700 pages depending on the book, but they're entertaining. The thing that bothers me with this is that the first and fourth books are pitched as science fiction by the publisher, but books 2 and 3 are fantasy, and so I shelve based off genre. So I've been shelving it in the science fiction area, but where do I put it now? I need to create a genre blending section on my bookshelves because I don't know where to put this. So I'm interested in getting to these 3 books. I also got more books, classic science fiction books by Kim Stanley Robinson. I have the first book in her Red Mars series, titled Red Mars, and I ended up getting books 2 and 3. Book 2 is Green Mars, book 3 is Blue Mars, and these are gorgeous covers. I'm going to look up who did the covers real quick on these because these are gorgeous. The first one, the cover is by Don Dixon, and I'm guessing the second one is as well, but I'm going to verify. Yes, Don Dixon did these covers, and these are just gorgeous covers. I have a feeling, based off of what I've heard, that this is going to fit that science fiction itch that I really enjoy. And so I haven't read book 1 yet, but I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy it. So once I get to it, I'll be able to get to books 2 and 3, both by Kim Stanley Robinson. Speaking of science fiction books that fit an itch, Ben Bova has quickly catapulted to being one of my favorite science fiction authors because of his novel Mars, and that was an amazing top tier, one of my top 2 science fiction novels of all time, possibly my number 1. I still need to give it more time, but it's up there. And I also read his book Return to Mars, which wasn't as good, but it was still an entertaining adventure, and it's still that brand of science fiction that I really enjoy. So I decided to get more of his books when I was at McKay's, and that's what I did. So I got the third and final book in the Mars section of his Grand Tour universe, titled Mars Life. And then I also got his book Leviathans of Jupiter, which I believe ties into his Jupiter novel, which I also own. I got the novel Titan, which ties into one of his series. I forgot which one. And then I got the book Mercury, which I think is his own like standalone in this universe. But this is all part of his Grand Tour universe. I'm loving it. I've been collecting the Grand Tour universe recently in recent months, and I'm excited to get to more books from that series. I got a book that is kind of out of left field, and that's Life, the Universe, and Everything by Douglas Adams. And this was a book that, how did I get hair on that? Anyway, this was a book that I got because I had books 1, 2, 4, and 5 of the series, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I didn't have book 3, and I'd read books 1 and 2, and I wanted to get to book 3, and so I was like, well, I need to go get it. So I just went out to the bookstore and bought it. And then, like, 2 days later, I was at another bookstore, and I saw the edition of the book that matched the editions that I had. This doesn't match my editions, but I said, you know what? I already spent too much money on books this month, so maybe I'll get it another time. But for now, I have this version to read just so I can get it and be able to read it and talk about it on the channel. This is also one of those really short ones I can read in like a day. Should be a fun read. All right, now to my John Grisham books that I got this month. I got 4 John Grisham books, 3 in paperback, 1 in hardcover. The 3 in paperback, I'll just list them quickly. You have The Testament, you have The Appeal, and you have The Associate. These are in that tall rack mass market version that I like. I've read some of his just plain mass market books, which are fine, but I prefer holding in my hand for John Grisham books specifically the tall rack version. It's just it's there's something about it that makes me feel like I'm reading a John Grisham book. So really excited to get to these. 2 of these I got. These 2, I think it was these 2 I got for 50 cents a piece at McKay's. It was a terrific find, and I opened them up and was like, is like the spine broken or pages missing? No, it looks all good. So I think it's because they just had so many that were turned in that they just brought the price down. So those were those books. The hardcover I got was The Rainmaker. It was at a local bookstore for actually not too much money. And this was a much smaller local used bookstore. And every time I go in, I want to buy something to help I go in maybe like once a month, twice a month. I want to help out the owner of the business. And so I always try to find something that I could buy. And it was a John Grisham book. It looked good. And I'm pretty much set for John Grisham for the rest of the year, it looks like. I had pretty much read through my John Grisham stuff because I read like one every like 2 or 3 months, and now boom, I got like 4 or 5 between the last couple months. So I'm gonna be set for Grisham for a while. Next, this is, in my opinion, my best find, and I'm most excited about this find because I interviewed Les Johnson at DragonCon and had a blast talking with him, and he revealed to me, and I knew that he had worked on a book with Ben Bova, but back when Ben Bova was still alive, and that book is called Rescue Mode. And Les Johnson revealed to me in the interview that he would be basically finishing Ben Bova's Grand Tour universe for him, writing the final novel. And that just made me excited to read more Ben Bova, read more Les Johnson, and specifically to read their collaboration that they had written, which is not part of the Grand Tour, I don't believe. It's just a standalone science fiction book called Rescue Mode. And then I got more excited when it's from a publisher I recognize, Bane. And so I found this in hardcover for a very reasonable price. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to snatch that up. I'm really excited to read this. So I'm really excited. Next, I have 3 fantasy hardcovers from Terry Brooks. I've read all 30 of the Shannara-specific novels, and I've read all 6 of his books in his Magic Kingdom series, Magic Kingdom of Landover. The only Terry Brooks books I haven't read, and I've read his nonfiction book about writing, which is a terrific book. It's really short, but it's terrific. The books I haven't read, Hook, which I purchased, and I haven't read his newest series. I'm waiting till that's all out because I don't need to read it right now. I'll read it when it's all out. But the series that his older series that everyone always comments I need to get to eventually is his Night and the Word series. You have the books, which is his like urban fantasy. So I got the hardcovers of Running with the Demon, which when my parents saw this title, they were like, Jonathan, what you getting? And I was like, trust me, it's a fantasy novel. It's not bad. And then I got A Night of the Word. which I like this cover. And then I got the one that I don't like the cover as much, but it's still cool, is Angel Fire East, which is a whole trilogy that I found. And so once I read this, my number of Terry Brooks books that I haven't read will decrease substantially. And it was a nice, good price for hardcovers. All right. Last two books that I purchased this month. One is a book titled Halo the Flood. I read the first Halo book, The Fall of Reach. Loved it. Have a book review on the channel for it if you're interested. And I want to read more Halo, and everyone said the next book to read is The Flood, although everyone I've talked to says this is the absolute worst Halo novel, which is kind of funny that people would say it like that. Apparently, people say that because this basically is just word for, like just beat for beat the game. But since I've never played the game, this will be a new and original to me, so I actually think this is going to be a lot of fun to read. I actually really like this cover that they did for it. So I'm excited to read The Flood. And I got this with a gift card at my local bookstore that I had. I would have waited to find it cheaper otherwise. And then for a new release that I purchased, Jason Cordova is a writer, and he also has edited anthologies and stuff over at Bane, and he writes stuff outside of Bane sometimes. And he released a new short story collection titled Side Hustle Volume 1. This is a self-published book. And you can tell when you open the book and you look at it, you can tell it's a self-published book. But it is still fairly well produced. I appreciate that he actually has his company logo that he made for Kerp Publishing. I like that he includes that. And I also do appreciate that the book does have a decent amount in the copyright page. And so I'm interested to see how this stacks up. It says there are 15 stories in here. The page count on this is 700 pages, so they're not that short. But I think that the font size is much larger than the average book, and so that's why it's so long. If the font size for this was the average book, I think this would be closer to 400 or maybe 450 pages. So now for the books that were sent to me by publishers. Bane sent me some, and there's one book I will actually, I'm getting it this week as I record this, so I actually won't put it on the book haul until next month, technically, but that's from a different publisher. But Bane sent me a couple of books, including The Scarab Mission by James L. Cambias, which is the second book in a series, which has a pretty nice cover. The first book is called The Godel Operation. It doesn't say what the name of the series is. That's a little frustrating. But this is a pretty nice cover. Also, I was referencing that Jason Cordova edits short story collections for Bane. And speaking of which, they sent me Chicks in Tank Tops, which I've actually interviewed some of the people who've written short stories in here, Joelle Presby and Marissa Wolf, who I've both interviewed, both of them. Their short stories are in this collection. And I needed to get a high-resolution image of this to include in my interview with one of them. And so I just searched up online, Chicks with Tank Tops, and the second I did that, I thought, oh shoot, I'm going to get weird ads now because I looked that up. And I tweeted, all right, algorithm, I do not want the weird ads. I was doing that search for work. So I was doing that for work. So don't at me. Don't send me those weird ads. But that was sent to me. One of the books that was sent to me that I actually read this month was Beyond Enemies by Marissa Wolf. One of my favorite published covers of any book I've read. The cover on this thing is gorgeous. I love it. I'd love to have a full print of it. It is a gorgeous cover. It's a really entertaining book. I have my problems with it, and I talk about that in my review, and I interviewed the author again on the book's release day. You can check that out on the channel. But the book is entertaining, but the cover is just it's so good. So I'm really excited for that. They also sent me book 4 in the Saga of the Forgotten Warrior by Larry Correia, titled Tower of Silence, in the trade paperback version. The hardcover came out last year. I have way too many Larry Correia books to read until I get to this, but I will get to this series eventually. And I know Mike from Mike's Book Reviews, he just started this series, and from what I've seen, he seems to be enjoying it. They also sent me their 2 hardcovers that published this month. Will McCarthy's Beggar's Sky, which is from his Poor Man's Sky, Rich Man's Sky series. This is the 3rd book in that series. And I have book 2 in mass market form. So I'm going to collect this series in all its varying degrees and forms. And I'll get to it because it actually looks interesting. And then they sent me one of the final books that Eric Flint contributed to, as well as George Huff and Paula Goodlet, titled An Angel Called Peterbilt. And this is, I don't know if this is part of the 16, or if this is the part of the Ring of Fire series, the 1600 series by Eric Flint. The cover looks very similar to that kind of series. But regardless, this is one of the hardcovers that publishes this month. Of the ones that Bane sent me that published this month, the one I was most interested in was Beyond Enemies, to the point that I read it the day that they gave it to me because I was really excited to read it. But of the other ones that they sent me, I am interested in eventually getting to Chicks and Tank Tops, maybe doing that part of that as part of the short stories reviews on the channel for shorts. But that is 31 books. This is going to be a long video to put together. But there's a ton of books in this book haul, but I'm so excited because there's so many great things to have here. So if you have read any of these, let me know in the comment section down below what you have read and what you enjoyed from it. What did you get in February? And do you think I am crazy? I don't know how I'm going to fit all these in a picture. Until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.